In today's video, we're looking at 3 content creators who died chasing viral fame with dangerous wildlife, from a live streamer's risky snake handling to a TikToker's deadly cave exploration in Texas. But first, we start in a Phoenix apartment, where a misidentified snake and desperate need for views created the perfect storm for a deadly live stream. It was March 15, 2016, in a cramped studio apartment in Phoenix, Arizona. At 11:47 p.m., the temperature had dropped to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, though the windows remained closed to minimize noise during live streaming. The bedroom had been converted into a makeshift studio, cluttered with ring lights, camera equipment, and charging cables across the hardwood floor. Poor lighting dominated the space, except for the streaming setup that cast harsh white light across a section of the unmade bed. Celeste Moreau, a 23-year-old social media content creator, had been building her following for 8 months through increasingly risky stunts and challenges. Her day job at a local retail store barely covered rent, making her social media income essential for financial survival. Her content had stagnated for 3 weeks, prompting increasingly desperate attempts to go viral. Comments on her recent posts demanded more extreme content, with viewers threatening to unfollow if she didn't escalate her stunts. Her roommate had moved out the previous month, citing concerns about Celeste's dangerous obsession with online fame. That afternoon, Celeste had purchased what the seller claimed was an Arizona king snake from an unlicensed dealer operating out of a gas station parking lot. The seller, who had obtained the animal from someone claiming to have found it injured near Scottsdale, assured her it was completely harmless and perfect for beginners. Collecting wild rattlesnakes requires permits in Arizona, making unauthorized sales illegal, though misidentification of defensive species remains common among amateur collectors. Multiple warning signs about the snake's stress level were visible, but went unrecognized due to Celeste's inexperience with reptile behavior. The animal had refused food since its capture and showed defensive posturing that experienced handlers would immediately recognize as dangerous. Celeste's research had focused on content creation techniques rather than proper animal handling protocols or emergency procedures. The combination of a stressed, misidentified venomous snake and inadequate safety precautions created a perfect storm for disaster. The western diamondback rattlesnake, scientifically known as Crotalus atrox, is Arizona's largest venomous snake and one of the most dangerous reptiles in North America. These heavy-bodied serpents typically measure 3 to 5 feet in length and can weigh between 3 to 10 pounds when fully mature. Their strike speed reaches up to 8 feet per second, making defensive reactions nearly impossible at close range. Western diamondbacks possess potent hemotoxic venom containing enzymes that destroy red blood cells, damage blood vessel walls, and disrupt normal blood clotting mechanisms. A defensive bite can inject a substantial quantity of hemotoxic venom capable of causing severe tissue destruction, circulatory collapse, and death without rapid anti-venom treatment. The species produces a distinctive rattle warning before striking, though stressed or recently transported specimens may strike without warning when handled improperly. Celeste began her broadcast at 11:43 p.m. with several viewers watching live. She sat cross-legged on her bed, with the snake draped across her shoulders, unaware that the animal's rigid posture and occasional subtle rattle sounds indicated extreme stress from recent transport and unfamiliar environment. The snake had been exhibiting defensive behaviors since being removed from its container. Celeste grasped the snake's head to lift it towards the camera, and viewers could hear the distinctive rattle through the stream audio as the animal became increasingly agitated. Moments later, the western diamondback struck without further warning. The western diamondback's fangs sank into the upper portion of her shoulder near the collarbone, close enough to major blood vessels to allow the venom to spread rapidly. The bite location increased danger due to dense vascular tissue and constant upper body movement, accelerating venom distribution through her lymphatic system. Visible puncture wounds appeared instantly at the bite site, with rapid swelling beginning within seconds as the toxic compounds began their destructive work. The snake's defensive rattle continued intermittently from its corner position, a warning that went unheeded by viewers who remained convinced they were watching elaborate performance art. Celeste's initial shock began giving way to the first symptoms of envenomation as the venom spread through her lymphatic system. Celeste stumbled toward her bedroom door, but knocked over a ring light in her panic, creating chaotic lighting conditions while the stream continued recording. Many viewers initially assumed the incident was staged, posting laughing emojis and comments about her acting skills. The snake remained coiled in the corner of the bed, maintaining its defensive position while Celeste's condition rapidly deteriorated. Within 10 to 15 minutes, she began experiencing nausea and weakness as the venom entered her system. Localized swelling around the bite site progressed steadily, while her speech gradually became difficult. After approximately 25 minutes, increasing weakness and respiratory distress caused her to collapse near the bedroom door. Her attempts to reach her phone were unsuccessful due to increasing weakness and disorientation. The hemotoxic venom caused advancing cellular destruction around the bite site, while simultaneously disrupting her blood's ability to clot properly. Her pulse became rapid and thready as her blood pressure dropped from shock and widespread vascular effects triggered by the venom. The venom began breaking down cellular structures around the bite site, causing progressive tissue breakdown and discoloration that would worsen over the following hours. Her lymphatic system became overwhelmed as it attempted to process the massive toxin load, leading to systemic inflammation throughout her body. As the venom continued to circulate, early clotting disruption began to develop, setting the stage for dangerous bleeding complications that would worsen over the following hours. The venom's enzymatic action continued destroying tissue integrity while simultaneously preventing her body's natural healing responses from functioning properly. The venom's enzymes continued destroying tissue around the bite site, causing the swelling to spread rapidly down her collarbone toward her chest. Breathing difficulties intensified as airway swelling restricted her respiratory passages. A viewer in the chat room contacted Phoenix Emergency Services after recognizing the severity of Celeste's condition at 11:59 p.m. Paramedics arrived 8 minutes later, finding her unconscious on the bedroom floor with severe swelling around the bitten area. The snake was captured alive by animal control officers and later identified as a western diamondback rattlesnake, contradicting the seller's claims about species identification. Emergency physicians administered polyvalent antivenom upon arrival, but the delayed presentation and rapid airway swelling severely limited its effectiveness despite aggressive supportive care. She was pronounced dead at 1:23 a.m. from respiratory failure and circulatory collapse. Her phone battery died at 12:02 a.m., ending the stream before her condition became critical. Investigators reconstructed the timeline through viewer testimonies and emergency call records. The incident prompted Phoenix Animal Control to increase enforcement of unlicensed reptile dealers. Local authorities used the case to educate content creators about the dangers of handling unidentified animals for social media purposes. The Phoenix apartment fell silent that night, but hundreds of miles away in rural Texas, another content creator was already planning his descent into a limestone cave system where the summer heat had driven dozens of rattlesnakes to seek shelter in the cool darkness below. It was August 3rd, 2017, in the remote hill country outside Fredericksburg, Texas. At 2:30 p.m., the temperature had reached 104 degrees Fahrenheit, driving most wildlife to seek shelter in cool refuges. The natural limestone cave system provided one of the few respites from the oppressive heat. Poor cell phone reception plagued the area due to rocky terrain and distance from communication towers. The nearest paved road lay 2 miles away through rough terrain that required four-wheel drive vehicles to navigate safely. Derek Castellanos, a 28-year-old TikToker and part-time community college business student, had built his following through elaborate pranks and 24-hour challenge videos. He thrived on the adrenaline rush of dangerous situations and the validation from completing seemingly impossible challenges, with recent videos featuring overnight stays in abandoned buildings and urban exploration stunts. Derek Derek possessed moderate snake handling experience from childhood camping trips, though his knowledge was limited to common, non-venomous species. The cave location had been recommended by a local rancher who warned him about aggressive snakes this season due to drought conditions. The rancher had specifically warned Derek about increased snake encounters that season, explaining that drought stress was forcing snakes into tighter spaces and making defensive strikes more likely. Derek dismissed these concerns, believing his experience would be sufficient to handle any encounters. The bulky camera equipment further limited his mobility in the confined cave space, making quick defensive movements nearly impossible if he encountered wildlife. Earlier that morning, Derek had discovered an unusual number of shed snake skins near the cave entrance, indicating recent heavy reptile activity in the area. The drought had been ongoing for 6 weeks, forcing snakes to concentrate near the cave's cooler environment and the small underground stream that provided one of the region's few reliable water sources. Local wildlife officials had issued warnings about increased aggressive animal behavior due to stress from the prolonged dry conditions. Derek's plan involved completing a 24-hour cave survival challenge for his TikTok audience, documenting his experience with multiple cameras positioned throughout the cave system. The southern copperhead, scientifically known as Agastrodon contortrix, is one of the most widespread venomous snakes in Texas and commonly seeks shelter in rocky cave systems during extreme heat. These thick-bodied pit vipers typically measure 2 to 3 feet in length and weigh between 8 ounces to 2 pounds when fully mature. They can strike at distances up to 2/3 of their body length with remarkable speed, making defensive reactions nearly impossible at close range. Copperheads often congregate in cool limestone caves during drought conditions, with multiple specimens sharing optimal shelter sites when surface temperatures become unbearable. Their moderately potent hemotoxic venom contains enzymes that break down tissue and disrupt blood clotting, causing severe localized pain, swelling, and tissue damage. Unlike rattlesnakes, copperheads provide no audible warning before striking and rely on their cryptic coloration to remain undetected until threatened. Derek began his descent into the cave system at 2:45 p.m., carrying 3 cameras to document different angles of his survival challenge. The limestone chamber extended 12 feet below ground level, with natural ledges and crevices providing numerous hiding spots for wildlife. At 3:17 p.m., while adjusting his primary camera angle to capture better lighting, he stepped on a concealed southern copperhead that had been resting against the cave wall. The attack sequence unfolded within seconds. Derek stepped on the concealed snake, which struck immediately at his ankle without warning. As he stumbled backward in surprise, he encountered a second copperhead that had been coiled behind a rock formation. Multiple defensive strikes followed rapidly as his camera equipment fell and he lost control of the situation. The snake struck immediately, its fangs penetrating through his boot leather and into his right ankle. Derek stumbled backward in surprise, directly into a second copperhead that had been coiled behind a rock formation. Multiple defensive strikes followed as he inadvertently entered the territory of several snakes that had congregated in the chamber. Drought conditions had forced an unusual concentration of snakes into the limited cool shelter. His primary camera fell during the encounter but continued recording audio throughout the incident. In his panic, Derek repeatedly triggered defensive strikes from concealed copperheads as he attempted to retreat toward the chamber opening. Derek attempted to climb out of the chamber but weakened rapidly as multiple envenomations took effect simultaneously. The snakes maintained their defensive positions near the cave entrance, effectively blocking his exit route while continuing to strike at any movement. 7 confirmed bite sites were later identified on his legs and lower torso, representing a massive cumulative venom dose that overwhelmed his system within hours. The multiple envenomations caused extensive tissue deterioration and vascular complications as his body struggled to process the overwhelming toxin load. While individual copperhead bites are rarely fatal to healthy adults, the cumulative effect of multiple envenomations created severe systemic complications. The concentrated toxic load caused extensive local cellular destruction and disrupted coagulation processes throughout his body. His cardiovascular system became increasingly compromised as the toxic load exceeded his body's ability to metabolize and eliminate the foreign proteins. His condition deteriorated steadily over several hours as the cumulative envenomation effects caused widespread organ damage and vascular complications. The extensive local tissue destruction around multiple bite sites led to severe pain and mobility impairment. His ability to coordinate his movements deteriorated as systemic effects progressed. The combination of severe pain, tissue damage, dehydration, shock, and untreated envenomation eventually led to his collapse deeper in the cave system. Local wildlife officials investigating reports of unusual snake activity in the area discovered Derek's vehicle and camping equipment, leading them to contact search and rescue when they couldn't locate the owner. Search efforts began immediately, but were hampered by the remote location and Derek's failure to provide specific coordinates for the cave system. Specialized cave rescue teams required 3 days to locate his body in the limestone chamber. The camera equipment recovered at the scene provided audio documentation of the incident, while multiple southern copperhead specimens were found still occupying the chamber. The medical examiner confirmed death by complications from multiple copperhead envenomations with extensive tissue damage and blood loss. Preliminary toxicology indicated the presence of copperhead venom from multiple sources and ruled out alcohol or drug involvement. The investigation determined that environmental stress from the drought had concentrated an unusually large number of snakes in the cave system. The Texas cave would be sealed by authorities within a week, but in the humid marshlands of the Florida Everglades, a young woman was already wading through murky waters where something far larger than any venomous snake waited motionless beneath a fallen cypress log. It was November 12th, 2018, in the remote sawgrass marshes of Everglades National Park, Florida. At 6:15 a.m., humidity levels approaching 90% created a thick morning mist over the water. Peak snake activity season had arrived with the cooler weather, while recent severe weather had displaced wildlife into unusual areas. The illegal camping location lay 8 miles from the nearest ranger station, accessible only by airboat or through treacherous hiking across unstable marsh terrain. Kaya Thornfield, a 25-year-old freelance dog walker, had gained a TikTok following by documenting her encounters with local wildlife during outdoor adventures. Her fascination with animal psychology drove her to study predator behavior in their natural habitats, with recent videos featuring pets from her dog walking business and urban wildlife encounters. Her outdoor experience came primarily from dog walking in urban parks and occasional camping trips, with minimal knowledge of reptile behavior or identification. The Everglades location had been chosen specifically to avoid permit restrictions that would limit her ability to create spontaneous wildlife content for her audience. Recent storm activity had passed through the region 6 weeks earlier, disrupting normal wildlife patterns and forcing animals into concentrated areas around remaining freshwater sources. Park officials had posted specific warnings about increased aggressive animal behavior as displaced species competed for limited territory and resources. That morning, Kaya had noticed an unusual absence of bird and insect sounds around her campsite, a warning sign of large predator presence. Fresh snake tracks in the mud near her tent, indicating large snake presence, should have prompted immediate evacuation. Her phone battery had dropped to 23% overnight, with no backup power source available. Multiple smaller snake sightings earlier that morning had been dismissed as good content opportunities rather than warning signs. Kaya had deliberately waded deeper into murky water to capture more authentic footage, believing the reduced visibility would create dramatic content for her audience. Each snake sighting had been viewed as a content opportunity rather than a clear warning to evacuate the area immediately. The narrow water channel she selected was known locally as prime python habitat, particularly during breeding season when territorial behavior became most pronounced. Local fishing guides had reported increased python sightings in this specific marsh area over the previous month, suggesting heightened activity levels. The Burmese python, scientifically known as Python bivitatus, is one of the largest snake species in the world and a highly destructive invasive species in the Florida Everglades. These massive serpents typically measure 12 to 20 feet in length and can weigh between 70 to 250 pounds when fully mature. They are excellent swimmers and ambush predators that strike instinctively when prey approaches within range. damage. Burmese pythons are non-venomous, but kill through constriction, applying sustained pressure that gradually restricts breathing and circulation. Large pythons may react defensively to sudden close contact, especially in areas where prey is concentrated during drought conditions. Their hunting method involves remaining motionless in water for extended periods, relying on natural camouflage until prey ventures within striking distance. At 6:47 a.m., Kaya waded into waist-deep water near a fallen cypress log to photograph what she believed was a smaller, harmless snake on a nearby branch. The attack happened suddenly. Kaya had barely positioned herself for the photograph when the python emerged from beneath the submerged log. The strike and immediate constriction followed within moments. The python immediately began constricting around her torso and legs, using the water for additional leverage while applying crushing pressure to her body. Kaya struggled desperately for several minutes as the python's coils tightened methodically around her chest and abdomen, preventing normal breathing and circulation. Each struggle triggered a reflexive tightening response, the python increasing pressure in reaction to movement rather than intent. The murky water made it impossible for her to see the full extent of the massive serpent wrapped around her body. Kaya struggled desperately as the python's coils wrapped around her chest and abdomen, gradually restricting her breathing and circulation. The snake's instinctive constriction response tightened with each of her movements, though the water buoyancy slowed the process compared to attacks on land. The crushing force began interfering with her ability to take full breaths, while the awkward position in the marsh water made effective resistance nearly impossible. Over several minutes, the combination of restricted breathing and physical exhaustion caused progressive systemic failure. The python maintained its grip through natural muscular contraction, responding to her struggles with increased pressure. As her movements weakened, circulation to her extremities became compromised, though her vital organs continued functioning for an extended period. Her movements became increasingly weak over approximately 10 to 12 minutes as oxygen deprivation and sustained pressure gradually overwhelmed her system. The water reduced her leverage and accelerated exhaustion, worsening oxygen deprivation as the constriction continued. Her struggles became noticeably weaker after several minutes, while the python's grip remained constant. Consciousness began fading as oxygen levels dropped, leading to reduced motor control and eventual respiratory arrest. Cardiac activity continued briefly before ceasing as prolonged oxygen deprivation reached irreversible levels. A recreational kayaking group discovered Kaya's waterlogged phone and abandoned campsite 2 days later while exploring the remote marsh channels. The phone was knocked into the marsh water during the initial attack, cutting off recording. Water damage destroyed the memory card. Park rangers and wildlife officials required specialized equipment to tranquilize the massive python before recovering Kaya's body from the marsh. The medical examiner confirmed death by constriction asphyxiation with secondary drowning, along with multiple crushed ribs and internal organ damage. Toxicology reports ruled out alcohol or drug involvement. The investigation determined that seasonal activity patterns and concentrated prey availability in the drought-affected marsh had increased the likelihood of python encounters in the area. The incident contributed to expanded Burmese python removal programs throughout the Everglades ecosystem, while wildlife officials used Kaya's case to educate the public about the dangers of approaching invasive species during periods of heightened activity and breeding behavior. Thanks for watching. Want to see more? Click on your screen now.